How do we get there though? Because it is a thing, wokeism, and in fact, it's has been particularly over the last 12 months for me anyway. It's sort of scary to take a position on something because you're worried you're going to get cancelled because like your livelihood or the thing you're passionate about, it depends on audience and let's call it acceptability as opposed to popularity. How did we get to that position, do you think? I mean, was that a global movement?
It's a global movement. I mean, it's starting to wane now, I think. And again, it's a life cycle and it's just getting to a different part of the debate. And it'll be advanced now with President Trump being elected. And if there's a change of leadership in Canada and Jacinda Ardern's gone in New Zealand, I think Anthony Albanese is trying to grasp onto it. But I just think most Australians have moved on. I also think in our country, the Voice allowed people to say, thank goodness I thought I was the only one who thought that, this wasn't necessary, wasn't a good thing for our country, want to help Indigenous people, but just didn't think this was the way to do it. And all of a sudden it turns out, well, there are 6, 7 out of 10 in your workplace that think exactly the same way as you do. And so I think it's allowed people a little bit of breathing space and they're more inclined to be able to speak out. So where does it come from? I think there are a lot of universities who have worked on this. I think it's a movement of the left. And again, this is a business model for some people. And I just don't believe that we should discriminate on the basis of gender or race or on any basis. And I think this is when you look at part of the outcome in the United States election, when they look at young males who are moving, I think a lot of young males feel disenfranchised and feel ostracised, and they're saying, well, hang on, I have nothing but respect for women and I would never treat my female friends differently than my male friends, but I'm being told that I'm some sort of ogre or I have some belief structure which is contrary to that which I know is what I hold in my heart. And there's, I think, just a point where people are fed up and they're pushing back and saying, well, why am I being overlooked at work for a job, 3 jobs running, when I've got, a partner at home and she's decided to stay at home with 3 young kids and I want a promotion at work so that I can help pay the bills at home. And so I think all of that has morphed. I also think there's, to your point, Mark, I mean, a lot of CEOs of public listed companies who have got HR and marketing people saying to them, don't enter into these debates, don't say anything. Whereas a generation ago, the CEOs of BHP or Coles or Myers or, the big sort of iconic brands felt an obligation to be on the front page of the Fin, advocating for tax change or for industrial relations reform or for, workplace, whatever it might have been. And now they only feel that they can comment on in support of some of the woke causes because their marketing people are telling them that will get them greater popularity online. I just think it's a level of weakness that doesn't serve our country's best interests.
So, and I listened to President Trump this morning at 4 a.m. and after his inauguration, I listened to his speech and he said and it's a different structure there. He can make these decisions, of course, because the president has these executive powers, which prime ministers won't have, you won't have, and we don't have. But he said there's only going to be 2 genders, male and female. And I thought about it. I thought, wow, there's going to be a lot of transgender people unhappy about that, etc. But I thought to myself, well, actually, probably makes sense. Anyone can do what they want. If you want to change your sex, that's fine, as long as you're of age, and you want to do it. That's up to you what you want to do. If you don't want to be identified as male or female, that's fine. There's no drama. But what he was saying is that we're only going to have male or female, but nothing else in between.
But there's a big debate in the UK where there's a Labor government at the moment. There's a big debate there about this issue and medications and what doctors are prescribing, and particularly for younger children who might identify in a way that we wouldn't have seen a generation ago, or that debate is maturing there as well, or going through a different phase.
And what do you think about that, though? For example, like schools talking to kids when they're young kids in early school periods, that it's their choice as to what they become.
Well, I default back to the position that I took before, and that is about firstly the innocence of childhood. I want to do everything I can to provide an environment where kids can be brought up in an environment where, frankly, they're not being pressured one way or the other, that they can be themselves, that they can live a happy and peaceful existence. And that has come traditionally, in my case, from the perspective of, making sure that children aren't subject of physical or sexual abuse. But it also extends into curriculum and into the education system. And I think right with the whole influence of social media now, kids are being forced to grow up much more quickly than what they otherwise would have. But I also strong believer in the individual, which is a core part of the liberal belief and the Menzian tradition in our party. And I don't, as a government, have a role to play in somebody's private life or their sexual life, and their identity and how they deal with that is an issue for them. Where it causes me concern is if you've got an activist teacher talking to a Year 3 class, or talking to 7 or 8 year olds or 9-year-olds, which is at odds with what their parents believe they should be taught. And I think it comes down to parental decision and parental discussion, and that's as I see it. I just don't. I've never believed in discrimination against anybody on any basis, as I mentioned earlier. And so I think there's a lot of personal decision making based on advice from doctors, but if you've got a teacher who is pushing a particular line or is trying to arrive at a particular outcome, then I've got a huge problem with that.